Welcome back, my dear. The Enemy by Paul S. Buck. Explanation Part 4. Now Sadao remembered the wound, and with his expert fingers he began to search for it. Blood flowed freshly at his touch. On the right side of his lower back, Sadao saw that a gun wound had been reopened. The flesh was blackened with powder. Sometime, not many days ago, the man had been shot and had not been tended. It was bad chance that the rock had struck the wound. Tended means cared for or looked after. And now explanation. Sadao was reminded that the man was wounded, as he had seen blood stains on the sand. As he was a doctor, he moved his trained fingers around the man's back to search for the wound, and he felt blood oozing out of a wound in the lower part of his back. It was a gun shot. The man had been injured a few days ago. He had not got any medical help to treat the wound, as he had himself used some black colored powdery substance on it. The sharp rocks on the shore had pierced it, and so it was bleeding. So here the doctor observed the flesh blackened, and here blackened because of gunpowder. If a bullet hits somebody, so that black gunpowder is often seen nearby the wound. Okay. Next paragraph. Oh, how he is bleeding! Hannah whispered again in a solemn voice. The mist screened them now completely, and at this time of day no one came by. The fisherman had gone home, and even the chance beachcombers would have considered the day at an end. Solemn means serious and concerned. Beachcomber means a vagrant who makes a living by searching beaches for articles of value and selling them, like rag pickers. And now explanation. Hannah was concerned that this man was injured and said in a low voice that he was bleeding. The mist had intensified now. The three of them could not be spotted by anyone. Moreover, the fishermen and the rag pickers did not visit the place at that time of the day. What shall we do with this man? Sadao muttered, but his trained hands seemed of their own will to be doing what they could to stanch the fearful bleeding. He packed the wound with the sea moss that strewed the beach. The man moaned with pain in his stupor, but he did not awaken. Muttered here means speak in a low voice. Stanch means stop or restrict. Sea moss is a kind of seaweed. Strewed means to be scattered untidily over a place or area. Moan means a low cry in pain, and stupor means a state of unconsciousness. So after finding the man, Sadao muttered in a very low tone. He said, what to do with this man? So although he was speaking something, but being a doctor, his trained hands, they started their work. He used the sea moss available there to pack the wound, and at this act, the moaning sound with pain was heard, but it was not enough to make him awakened. So here in this paragraph we get a very important information that though he was a doctor, though he found the man his enemy, but the doctor in him, the human being inside him, was more powerful at that moment. Next paragraph. The best thing that we could do would be to put him back in the sea, Sadao said, answering himself. Now that the bleeding was stopped for the moment, he stood up and dusted the sand from his hands. Yes, no doubtly, undoubtedly, that would be best, Hannah said steadily, but she continued to stare down at the motionless man. If we sheltered a white man in our house, we should be arrested, and if we turned him over as a prisoner, he would certainly die, Sadao said. The kindest thing would be to put him back into the sea, Hannah said. But neither of them moved. They were staring with a curious repulsion upon the inert figure. Repulsion means a strong dislike, and inert means motionless. And our explanation. Sadao answered to himself and said that the best thing was to put the man back into the sea. As the bleeding stopped, he stood up, he means Sadao, stood up and removed the dust from his hands. Hannah supported his opinion, but looked intently at the man as he lay still. Sadao said that if they gave him shelter, they would be arrested for sheltering an enemy. If they handed him over to the Japanese army as a prisoner, then he would die in the prison. As he thought that both the options were not favorable, so the best option was to put him back into the sea. Hannah added that the kindest act for them was to put him back into the sea. Both of them did not move ahead to do so. Rather, they stared at the motionless figure with dislike. They disliked him because he was an enemy, an American. Next paragraph. What is he? Hannah whispered. There is something about him that looks American, Sadao said. He took up the battered cap. Yes, there, almost gone, was a faint lettering, a sailor, he said, from an American warship. He spelled it out, U.S. Navy. The man was a prisoner of war. Battered means torn and worn out. Now explanation. Hannah was inquisitive as she asked about the man's identity. Sadao replied that he appeared to be an American. He picked up the torn cap and read the words written on it, which were slightly visible. He said that the man was a sailor from an American warship and read out the words U.S. Navy written on the cap. They concluded that the man had been taken into captivity during the war. He has escaped, Hannah cried softly, and that is why he is wounded in the back. Sadao agreed. Explanation. Sadao and Hannah discussed that the man had tried to escape from the prison and had been shot in the back. Next line. They hesitated, looking at each other. Then Hannah said with resolution, "Come, are we able to put him back into the sea?" Explanation. They were not able to gather the courage to throw him back into the sea. Hannah called upon Sadao with firmness. She asked him if he was ready to put him into the sea. So till here I am completing here.